people first media approach. But I really want to get into really how you're seeing the world, because the way that I think about brand building and B2B and all of this stuff is really focused on more of a rented channel approach because of the media content work that we're doing. And so we're looking at how are our clients showing up in AI and what are the things that we need to be thinking about on social. And we're kind of moving at the speed of how social media is evolving. And I know in your world, that's not probably the same challenge. So I want to definitely get into how you're thinking about brand visibility in how the internet is evolving and all of these like larger pieces. But before we do that, I want to play a little bit of a lightning round game. Are you good with that?
Let's do it.
Okay, warm up the engines if you would. Okay, so this is a kind of like a either or. So I'm going to throw out what it is and you tell me which one you'd pick. Cool?
Cool.
Okay. Media plan or content calendar?
A content calendar.
Okay. One executive who's just crushing it and consistent, or 5 that are doing a good job contributing?
One.
LinkedIn or podcast?
Podcast.
Build in public or launch once it's polished?
Build in public.
Borrowed trust or earned?
Earned.
Okay. Thought leadership or demand gen?
Demand gen.
Okay. All right. This is fun. So we're going to get into the conversation and kind of break down, hopefully, why some of the either ors came to mind. But I'm going to be selfish and start with, why'd you say podcast over LinkedIn?
So video podcast specifically, and because video is the ultimate content format, and it gives you the optionality to distribute that content to so many places in so many ways to so many people. LinkedIn is a channel. Podcast is not a channel. That's just my opinion.
And that's interesting what you just said, because podcast is a channel and content.
No way. No
It
chance.
is definitely a channel.
It's an asset.
How is it not a channel?
Apple Podcast is a channel. Your podcast is not a channel.
Okay. All right.
Your podcast is not a channel.
Fair. I will succeed. What is that? Not succeed. Secede. What do you say? I can't say words lately. Like, I know them in my head, but I can't say them out loud.
You give in. You give in to my.
I give in. I give in. Okay, so I want to talk about brand visibility. And that's really what started this conversation of me wanting to actually chat with you specifically because of the persona that you work with and honestly, all of the experience that you've had. You've been a part of really like the journey of the internet. Can I say that? I don't know. But definitely.
That's not true. Not true. No. But
yeah, sure. It's kind of true with how marketing has changed over the last 15 years. I mean, we've seen it all from lead scoring and inbound to now unbound and sort of all of these ways that marketers are moving and trying to think. But at the end of the day, from my point of view, we're really trying to solve a brand visibility problem. How do more people find out about us? How do we solve their problems? And sometimes how we get there is contingent upon how we measure what we're trying to manage. So my question to you as we get into this conversation is, when you're thinking about brand visibility, what are companies actually measuring when they say they want more brand visibility?
I mean, it really depends on like the stage of your company. With everything in marketing, it depends. Like if you're a public company who has the resources to truly do, quarterly brand visibility studies, you're going the gamut. You're gonna, find a company that does that for you, and you're gonna really understand visibility sentiment across landscape compared to your competitors, right? And that's going to give you a ton of different insights. And that's also like not digital brand visibility. That's just all of it. That's not tenable for most companies. I think it really starts always with your customer profile, like who is your ideal customer, and measure what matters in relation to like where are they and like what channels are you activating, right? So, brand visibility. I mean, okay, think about each channel. AI search, there's like the visibility piece now, right? And then there's like the citation piece. And then sure, there's the actual like referral traffic and conversions that come from it. That's obviously one that a lot of people are talking about, Rachel. visibility in communities. It's harder, but like, the more public versus private communities, right? That's another place you could look at. There's actually, if you're doing a lot with paid media, that is obviously a different type of, brand visibility. You're paying for it most of the time, but like, that's another one, right? Just impressions, just like how much are you showing up and where are you showing up? Reddit, YouTube, there's some testing that we're doing on those channels. And of course, just Google Display Network, right? Like, how are you getting your brand front and center? There's review sites, right? So, I mean, like, I could keep going on. There's probably like 15 to 20 places, out of home advertising, right? Which is like the non-digital stuff. Well, actually, it kind of is digital because you're using screens anyway. Yeah. But again, like, I think the best things marketers can do today is focus. Like, focus, and don't get super distracted. Like, focus on and find something that works. Make sure it's repeatable. And then you have confidence in that repeatability, and then try something else, right? Ironically, it's the same way you should, use AI. Focus on a narrow use case, find out how it plays out for you and how it works, and then move on to something else. But yeah, those are my 2 cents.
So leaning into this, because I definitely want to come at this from a brand visibility in the digital arena perspective specifically. And we talk about that word focus. Why do you think it's so hard for marketers to actually focus on one? And I would actually ask you 2 questions. Why is it so hard? And how do they? How do they determine which thing to focus on first and when?
Well, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise in the market, but have to do all this crap. There's stuff coming from your C-levels and CEO, I'm sure, right? There's stuff like you're like FOMO missing out on this thing, right? There's just a lot of noise and not a lot of signal, right? And that's where, again, like, AI is not going to be able to tell you, unless you have a lot of data, like, where you should focus. I just go always to, like, now that you have AI and you're hopefully using it with your customer data set, or data sets, I should say, your customers can help you, figure out where to focus, right? Like, if you're not asking, this is a classic thing that's been talked about for a long time now, but like, if you're not asking your customers how they heard about you at least once or twice throughout that buying journey, you're missing a very invaluable piece of data. If you're not, like, using some type of call recording and have a simple prompt set up to track when someone says, yeah, I heard about you from this, in the calls they have with your, customer success team or sales team, you're missing valuable data. So, like, to me, it starts with the voice of the customer, and it's never been easier to get and tap into that voice of the customer. And that can help you determine where you focus. If a lot of people say, yeah, I found you on Google, I found you on Google, I found you on Google. Well, then use Google more, do more with Google. Like, and that's both Google AI mode, AI reviews, so like AI search, also probably traditional SEO, maybe display network, right? Maybe ads, like you touch it, but like Google obviously is an ecosystem you need to be playing in and double down on, right? So I think that's where it starts. Sure, you can do some experimentation. Like, we did a Reddit experiment for just 30 days. Probably wasn't long enough, so we're going to pick it back up. But we saw some good clicks, some good kind of impressions and engagement, but no conversions. So, all right, well, no conversions. All right, we have to do something differently, right? So I think small scale testing is the other way you figure this out. But yeah, I don't think you want to do like all of it. Like, you don't want to run like 10, 20 tests unless you have like a lot of resources. You want to do like 2 or 3 tests and see what happens. And then you want to, have your 1, 2, or 3 really dependable channels and really make sure those are working well every month.
So going back to this idea of brand visibility in the digital age, how do you define that in terms of success? Like, if somebody is like, we have achieved brand visibility, what's that story sound like?
Brand visibility. Let me ask you this: how do you determine what is your definition of brand visibility? Like,
yeah. And I think the reason that I'm thinking a lot about this is because that feels like the thing that a lot of people are talking about, and I'm looking out into the world to say, what do you mean by brand visibility? And to me, it means we are the brand, we are the category leader, we're the category thought leader when it comes to the problem that we solve for ICP. And how do you become the category thought leader? You're the one who's cited as the thought leader who's talking about this thing. You're the one that's mentioned. You're like, it's more of a popularity contest, from my viewpoint, on the digital landscape.
I mean, there's 2 sets of metrics for brand visibility. One is like, it's just impressions and engagement. Fine, you can measure that across every single channel, right? Like, impressions and engagement. I will say a lot of that is vanity
compared
crap,
to
though.
That's what I was gonna say too, because I'm like, I actually don't care too much about impressions and engagement, unless it's content that I'm specifically trying to make sure that we are the ones being found for. Um, and so that's where I kind of have this like devil and angel on the shoulder kind of bit, where I'm like, what actually matters in the age of where we're at? I don't even know what age we're in.
I believe it's creating your own audience. So like impressions and engagement, 30% are probably bots at least. So that's why it's like it's a vanity metric and whatever. But like you need to like look at that to make sure like the efficiency of your top of funnel is in a good enough spot, right? But then it's like, how do those convert into like you capture an email address that is either really like nicely aligned to your ICP definition or like close enough, right? So like you're just trying to build an own audience, which is an email address. From there, it's a hand raise. Like, what is the 1, 2, maybe 3 types of conversion events that really lead to pipeline? And then everything else is just kind of pipeline or whatever. Like that's how I think about it, right? Those 3 things. Like, and for me, it goes back to your question on like, thought leadership and like people like creating content. Like you somehow have to be capturing emails and building a one-to-many relationship with the people that give you their email. And that has changed. It's like no longer like subscribe to the blog or like download an ebook and we just nurture you. Like, no, like you should have like a more intimate relationship. And like, we're trying to do this now with our head of people, Sarah. She is a newsletter went out today, actually, Open Door HR. Just find Open Door HR at EasyLlama. And it's an every 2-week newsletter. She's building up an audience for EasyLlama around that, right? So, and a good play there, by the way, is doing advertising on other newsletters and then nurture those people that convert in those newsletters to your newsletter. It's a great play. But again, like that to me is a portion of like brand visibility, getting an owned audience, and then over time nurturing them into a deal.
Yeah, so it's less about how do I get my company to show up in AI. It's more about how do I get my company, maybe I'll
No, you got to
pause.
show up in AI search too. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
You got to focus on
And
that. Yeah.
okay, so let's go back to the word focus, because if I'm a marketer, I'm sitting here going, I know I need my brand to become more visible, like I just do, because there's more noise, there's more competition, there's more robots to compete with, in addition to all the people that are already there. Um, the goal then is to be found, to be liked, and then to be trusted so that they buy. So to be found, you have to identify like 1 or 2 focused efforts to help your company be found. One of those efforts from our point of view would be get your people to be distribution channels for you, creating content for them, getting them to post consistently, all in line with the company.
Yep.
Being liked would be create content that kind of creates a parasocial relationship. Maybe it's a newsletter that they subscribe to. Maybe it's a podcast where they really get to know you on a deeper level. And then the third piece there is trust, and they show that they trust you by giving you their email address.
Oh, I don't know if I'm sure that's a trust. That's like I'm interested. I would say it's
I'm
interested.
interested. Okay, that's
Yeah.
more of a I like you indicator than a trust you.
Maybe
Okay.
because they could still unsubscribe. I don't know. I think it's I mean, I definitely subscribe to the first 2. I mean, the question that you're asking is heavily dependent on the stage at which the company's at. Like,
Okay.
is it net new? Is it 5 years old? Is it 10 years old? Like, because for example, if you already have a really strong SEO presence, HubSpot, take that as an example. They're like, no, we're going to throw out that playbook and we're going to take our SEO assets. They've lots of SEO assets, traditional search assets, which still do work a little bit, but we're going to redeploy those, change the strategy of those to AI search. And they did a really good job of that, right? Like that's like, so like, but like if you don't have any SEO visibility, like you don't have any search, it's like, well, you're not going to do traditional SEO then. You still should probably create some content, but it's a whole different approach than what HubSpot would take, right? Like you would do probably more of what you're talking about. And over time, I would focus actually more, if you want to get ranked and visibility, I should say, in AI search engines, you need to focus on mid to bottom of the funnel content. Thought leadership, it's hard to get visibility for thought leadership unless you create like a new term, a category. It is going to be hard. So like, I think it depends on like where you are, what are your long-term aspirations, what type of company you're trying to build. Like those 2 questions, what type of company you're trying to build and how aggressive you're trying to grow it, and what's your resources, all of these things play into now your marketing strategy more than ever before, because it is so noisy. The attention race is so hard these days. Marketers have got to think like owners, got to think like mini CEOs to really be successful today. I truly believe that.
Tell me more. How does a marketer show up like a mini CEO versus maybe how they were trained or learned?
At the highest of levels, you have to understand how the business makes money, and retains that money. Like, you have to understand the P&L, and you have to understand what are the inputs and outputs to that P&L that then you play into the short-term results, like the next quarter or so, but then also, like, what does the next year look like? And like, are we trying to grow 30% year over year, 20% year over year? Are we trying to grow a little bit less but become more profitable? What's our, like, the classic rule of 40? Like, are we trying to achieve that or maintain that or be better than that? Like, what is the business model, and then like the financial model, and then how does your marketing match to that when it comes to your ICP? Like, you really have to bring all those things together today, because you might be just wasting time and money going after a channel or doing stuff with brand visibility because it just doesn't make sense. Like, you have so much latent demand, for example, in a market. People are already searching for what you created a product around. Just do ads. Just
Mhm.
take the demand that already exists and harvest it. Like, you
Mhm.
don't need a podcast in that case. Then you don't need a
Mhm.
podcast. You go after that. You might need a podcast though if you want to, like, say, hey, I want to build a really, like, long-term efficient business. So I want to reduce my dependency on that paid ad spend over time, lean into brand building over the next 3-4 years. So I actually should start a podcast, because in 4 years I'll have such a great asset and an owned audience that my ad dependency will go down. But if I'm trying to flip that business in 1 year, why would I make that investment? Because I'm going to flip the business in 1 year, right? See, like, it's just so nuanced in a way that, like, I think you got to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, and I would say like most of the people that we typically are working with, I would say are medium-sized businesses. So they probably already know who they are and what they're trying to do, but they're inundated with information on what they need to be doing. And so
Noisy.
it can feel overwhelming to go like, well, how do I begin? Where do I start? I already feel behind. What are some of the things that I can do now to start to feel like I'm making momentum, even though everything's changing so fast all of the time? So what I'm thinking about is sort of like this idea of the approach that you and I have talked a lot about, which is like people first media.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm curious if you were put on the spot, which you're being put on the spot, and you were told you could only do three things, what would you do and why?
Three things for what? Give me a goal. Like, what's the goal?
For pipeline, generate pipeline.
Three things to generate pipeline. The first thing I would do is, like, go back to what I said before, which is like, what is working today, and what are customers saying in terms of how they're finding us? If you're giving me the example of, like, that,
Yeah,
mid-sized
check.
business,
Perfect.
start there. Like, do more of what works, and, like, do that better. Number
Why?
one.
First of all, what you're saying is so like, duh. But it's also like when we are given so much information, it is sometimes hard to get back to the duh because we're like, well, we're
Yeah.
missing that. I'm doing that. Like even like when you think about it in your own life, of like, I'm like, if you had the scenario where you're like, I'm so out of shape, I don't even know where to start, and it's like, just start by walking. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
just go back to what you just know how to do.
Yeah.
Like you probably be all right.
No, you definitely will be
Okay,
all right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Number two.
I mean, number two, then it's like the classic 2x2, like, low to high impact, low to high effort. Like, do a brainstorm with your team, yourself, with AI, whatever, and ask yourself, like, what is, like, low effort, high impact things that we're not doing that we can test, right? And,
Mhm.
like, ideally, you have, like, some conviction that those work, either because competitors are doing them, or there's a lot of signal that, like, you should be doing that based off your ICP and whatnot. But, like, find two things that you kind of really aren't doing right now, and these are more short term. I'd say, like, 3-6 month things that you can really understand in 3 to 6 months. Like, what is it going to work, is it not going to work, and do those things, right? And then the third bucket is, like, the long term stuff. What can we do? What's, like, the one or two, like, long term things that we're going to need, like, 6 to 12 months to really understand, but we've pretty strong conviction they're going to work. So it's high effort, low impact in the beginning, but potentially high impact down the road, that we can also get some early signals from and figure out. And that's just how I would prioritize it, right? Because at the end of the day, like, if you're in marketing, most marketers, should be beholden to pipeline, and they got to produce pipeline for their business, or they're going to be in trouble.
Well, and so when we go back to kind of the core way that we see brand visibility working within a people first approach, it's like, yeah, you have your own media asset, which would be a podcast. And that podcast could obviously be like a video based show and all of that kind of stuff. And then you're squeezing out all the good juice for it. That to me would be probably in bucket three, right? That's like a long-term play that you're gonna run for at least 6 to 12 months. Unless
No,
tell
it
me,
could be
tell
a
me
short
how you
term.
see it.
So like
How do you see it short term?
you could do a 3 to 6 month show where the whole show is about the stories of your customers, and you're gonna use that across all of these different channels, right? Like all of these things you get from the stories of your customers. Every episode you get, you're like, all right, I can deploy an ad, I can deploy this over here, I can deploy that on my website, and you can measure like how an A/B test of like, well, let's do this type of ad versus this type of ad. Let's redo our lead nurture. When we can go back to that email example, we're trying to nurture people into relationships that eventually become pipeline. We're going to use more customer content in that. Let's see how that performs. Do an A/B test on that, right? It's never been an easier time just to do straight up A/B tests. And I think the biggest, thing most people don't do is they don't go back to the voice of the customer. So a short-term thing would be able to do like a 3 to 6 month show and measure like the efficiency of that show. What I would do though is like every time you have a guest on the show, it's like, hey, thanks for being on the show. Do you know anyone else like yourself that might need our solution? So you're getting word of mouth referrals from those guests. Like you could do it really intentionally and test that out and prove it out. It's like, oh wow, this thing really does work. Maybe we should do a longer term investment of like a more thought leader type show, maybe, or something that's a little bit more like, but again, like that customer content from an AI standpoint, AI search, like that's what AI search engines need is like the customer product type marketing content for you to show up in there. So that's a really tactical example, but like I think that's a 3 to 6 month thing you do. You can get a lot of value out of that and you can learn a lot.
Well, I think to that point too, where people I think sleep on podcasting as a short term like opportunity would also be in like doing some original research because you could do customer based research, but you could also just do marketplace research using a podcast, and then you're the one who's the author of that content, and so you're doing a short term play that will also compound over time. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a way that you can create sort of a bridge between both an experiment or a short term play that will actually impact you for the long haul too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we're doing right now is we're creating a community called The Herd. It's live. We have our first event coming up at the end of June. It's a wine tasting for 30 of the founding members. And that's a long-term play, but we're like doing short-term things with it. So like 4 or 5 people already out of that 30 are customer stories. Like they're like, they've either been shipped or they're going to become customer stories. 4 or 5 people have given us testimonials. Like 4 or 5, like those people like, will eventually become.
Your mic, you just muted yourself, Mark.
Oh, I just muted
It's
myself.
almost
Sorry.
like you've never had a podcast before. I don't know.
I'm too excited, but like I think like you could either start with an asset or start with the community that feeds the assets. But like a long-term thing in this example would be like building a customer community. I actually think that's one of the most important things any business can do today. You need to build some type of community experience with your customers. Like you
So
have
talk
to
to
do
me.
that.
So talk to me about community building with, let's say you have a goal and it's like, I want to be known. I want to be the brand, that girl, whatever. How does a community help a brand accomplish that?
Because you empower your customers to be the voice of your brand. That's the best brand visibility you could ever have, right? Word of mouth. Everyone wants that. Then do more with your freaking customers. Like it's such an obvious thing. Like, Rich, if I was you, like I'd be like doing a shit ton with your customers, like all the time, right? Like it's just like customers, like sharing how much they believe in people first media, how much they believe in everything you're saying. Like I'm highly convinced. Like we do a zine, we do it's quarterly, maybe it's every 6 months now, like a magazine. We did that magazine in Q1. 3 out of the 10 people we interviewed that were not customers became customers within 2 months of us getting them in that zine. It goes back to your point of like having non-customers on your show, talking to them, but like some of those people were customers and now they're even I would say better customers because they've seen how EasyLlama really cares about them and how we value the partnership, and we are trying to like make them into like a, I don't know, you don't want to say like a champion, I don't think that's the right word, but like into someone who really believes in what we believe, and like together like we've created this strong partnership, if you will. And we both mutually benefit, because like they've told us why they benefit from this at a personal level. It's not even about their company necessarily, but at a personal level, and then we get benefits as well. So I just think if you think about people first in three things, it's storytelling, it's relationship building, it's partnerships. You have to be investing in those three things, no matter if you're thinking short or long term.
I honestly feel like that was 25 minutes of gold, and I'm gonna let us out on that one, and then I want to talk to you offline about more of this brand of visibility piece, specifically for Share Your Genius, because I respect your brain. So we're gonna go off live. If you want to hear the rest of my conversation with Mark that we stopped streaming, you got to go over to YouTube and subscribe, and you'll get to hear more of what Mark and I discussed. Thanks, Mark.
Peace.